Blood Warlock, Succubus Partner in the Apocalypse. Chapter 28 Cowardice and Courage. Xietain's words stunned everyone present. Regardless of whether they were teachers or students, the people able to participate in this small meeting and express their opinions stared straight ahead with blank expressions. Shangguan Bingshui frowned and suddenly felt that there was something wrong with this situation. Her brain was like a supercomputer, remembering what had just happened, and soon her eyes flashed softly as if she had finally understood everything. Chen He, who always had a calm expression on his face, could not help but gasp in a breath of cold air as he looked at Xietain as if he was an unidentified alien. Until now, although the time they spent together was not much, Chen He had identified Xietain as a person who enjoyed loneliness more than the company of others and was usually quite calm. Therefore, now that he saw him go crazy and say such arrogant words, he did not know how to react. Moreover, Chen He had seen how terrifying Liang Peng's strength was during the first day of the apocalypse after the arrival of the soul record to this world. A single blow from his hammer was enough to turn a zombie's body into a pile of meat paste. What arrogance, brat! Liang Peng's eyes opened as wide as those of an enraged bull. His beard quivered and he looked at Xietain as if he was going to jump on him at any moment. Liang Peng had seen Xietan's speed back then when he decapitated zombies. Although he was fast, Liang Peng believed that at such a distance he only needed to stretch out a hand to crush him like an ant, such was the confidence in his physical strength. Xietan's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness as he looked at the man who was like a small giant. His current mood was gloomy to say the least. As if that wasn't enough, his left hand was still hurting, his family might be suffering from hunger or who knows what kind of hardship. Since this person does not understand in a good way and words could not reach him, a bit of pain might make him understand the meaning of the word terror. Xietain took a step forward and was about to make his move when a cold but beautiful voice stopped him. Okay, let's do as you say. Everyone looked at Shangguan Bingshui in surprise and disbelief. Even Xietain himself was surprised that this woman agreed with his words so easily and without argument. Bingshui, you. Are you sure of what you were saying? Chen He looked at his childhood friend in shock. It was no secret to anyone that he had been in love with her for years, therefore, he knew very well that she was an intelligent woman. However, he did not understand why she had accepted such an idea that was clearly not good at the moment. Shangguan Bingshui gently shook her head but did not explain anything. Among those present, only she had noticed that Xietan's mood was on the floor, and if it wasn't for her interrupting just in time, it was likely that things would have gotten out of hand. Right now, the last thing they needed were internal battles. While I agree with what you said, I need you to explain better what you have in mind. Otherwise, no one will accept such a wild idea like that. Shangguan Bingshui looked at Xietain indifferently and slowly explained, at this point, everyone's mood is not good. The situation of the unknown world is getting worse and worse. If we suddenly tell them that their meals will be cut off, no one will accept it willingly. Xietain looked at her and took a deep breath to calm down a bit before speaking slowly. Of course, what I want is not for everyone to suddenly have the courage to fight. I know something like that is illogical. Noticing that things had calmed down, the teachers present, Kai Jingyi, and Chen He secretly let out a sigh of relief. As for Liang Peng, he only snorted and remained silent as he listened to what Xietain had to say about it. Shangguan Bingshui nodded and indicated with her eyes for him to continue explaining his idea. If Xietain had asked everyone to fight in order to eat, then even if the strength of the group fell she would have no choice but to ask him to left alone. After all, very few people were willing to risk their lives, and the human mentality had not yet completely changed to adapt to the new world. Xietain continued, my idea is simple. After we find food, the students and teachers who are unable to fight will carry it. In addition, when we look for clothes or other useful items, these people will also help. I also think it would be good to get some beds. In short, whatever is logistical support and does not require risking life and death, all those who want to eat their fill should cooperate. After a moment of silence, the handsome Chen He was the first to open his mouth. I agree. That idea is good enough. I agree as well. Shangguan Bingshui finally nodded in perfect accord. In the end, everyone accepted Xietan's suggestion. While some of them might not be satisfied, 3 of the 4 fighters in the group had already made up their minds, so those without fighting ability could only accept their fate. When the new rules were announced, many people complained loudly and some of them even began to curse. However, when Xietain said that those who disagreed and all those who continued to make a fuss should leave the group, all the courage of these people disappeared completely and no one else was willing to complain for fear to be kicked out of the group. What a joke! As weak as they were, being expelled from the group and the protection of those with real power was no different to courting death. Xietain looked at the more than 100 people present and an idea flashed in his mind. It was a bit annoying, but in the long run, it might be his best help in finding his loved ones. With this in mind, he stepped forward and said aloud, "I know many of you are afraid of being scratched by those zombies, as most of you here have probably seen the aftermath. However, you don't need to be so scared. Those zombies are even slower than a normal person like you, so imagine how slow they are for people like me and everyone else who have leveled up by absorbing the enemy's soul power." The eyes of several people had a strange glint in them upon hearing this. Indeed, zombies were slow, and if one was careful, even a normal person could kill a zombie. However, it was not easy to overcome the fear, let alone knowing that zombies were not the only danger. But Xietain's next words changed things. "I will personally hunt zombies, cut off their legs and arms, even crush their jaws. You just need to have the courage to pick up a weapon and finish them off to gain soul power and level up." People began to murmur and stare at each other as they argued amongst themselves. Clearly, there were many tempted by the offer. After all, without their hands, legs, and without their teeth, the zombies were nothing to fear. None of them were really willing to die, and there were many of them who didn't want to do more embarrassing jobs for fear of fighting. However, at the end of the day, fear was one of the strongest human emotions. After a minute, no one stood up and everyone was silent. While Xietain's words were tempting, no one was willing to risk their lives just like that. Even if the zombies were incapacitated by him, there were still terrifying insects and other horrible beasts that could emerge from anywhere at any time. Asking them to pick up a weapon to fight after living almost 20 years or more in a peaceful society under the protection of rules, laws, and their parents was no different than asking them to walk naked down the street in broad daylight. It might sound easy, but no one in their right mind was willing to do something like that. However, these people forgot that sense had already disappeared and that the mentality of the past no longer applied in this new world. Unfortunately, by the time many of them realized this fact, it would be too late to regret it. Liangpeng folded his arms and looked at the scene with a mocking expression. Chen He was casual, unconcerned about what was happening in front of him. Shangguan Bingshui had a strange glint in her eyes and looked at the women present, seemingly thinking about something. "Since you are unwilling, then you can continue to be trash for the rest of your lives." Xietain looked at the crowd coldly and snorted. However, just when he was about to turn around and leave, a soft voice took him by surprise. "I'll go with you." Xietain looked to the side and saw the pretty but normally shy and fearful Kai Jingyi looking at him with a serious expression. She gritted her teeth softly and continued, "Please let me go with you to kill zombies." Kai Jingyi was a smart woman and knew that although they were currently being protected, if a problem that Shangguan Bingshui, Chen He, Liangpeng, or Xietain could not solve arose, just by having strength of her own her chances of surviving in this world would be higher. Otherwise, it was only a matter of time before she would die for some reason or another. When a rock fell on a silent lake, waves always appeared no matter how small they were. "Let me come with you, I want to kill zombies too." A young man around 19 years old, wearing glasses and whose body was thin, stood up and took a step forward. "I also want to level up. Let me go with you, please." Another young man in his 20s stood up and looked at Xietain with determination. "I'll go with you." A pretty female student with some freckles also stood up while gritting her teeth. Although her body shivered with fear, she still decided to step forward. "Only 4 of them, huh? It will do for now." Xietain thought silently and a smile raised softly on his face as his eyes scanned the 4 people who had the courage to step forward. Sometimes, human beings just needed a little push to dare to do things they normally would have never even thought to do.